Today, guys, we're having a bit of a mixed bag, a few different things to talk about, what I've been generally doing in-game at the moment, right before the start of Christmas, as well as some information that's came from the devs, kind of newsy type stuff. Now, the thing is, really, since Winter's Day came in the game, we haven't actually had very much news at all. But there was at least a recent post from the devs regarding the current state of World vs. World and patches upcoming. That does sound very exciting. Even I, as someone who don't play World vs. World that much, can understand some pretty major changes that are coming our way, which is great because it's nice to see any kind of movement in that game type at all. I think actually a lot of the frustrations that may be coming from World vs. World at the moment is, I really know for a long time I've been talking about, hey, it's going to change in a big way, it's going to change in a big way. You know, with Heart of Thorn specifically, it was the inclusion of a new Borderlands, and a lot of cool World vs. World was saying, hey, this isn't really what we wanted in the first place, but seeing like earlier steps as well, in addition to their supposed big ideas in the future, you know, you can't really poo-poo. But so, before we start talking about that though, I did just want to give you guys a bit of an update about the Spud Club. Now, I'm not going to do a dedicated video on this just yet, but I did mention to you guys in a previous video the fact that we've opened up a fan guild now. It's almost at max capacity. Specifically, it's more for the stream that I'm running. So, it's a really easy way to be able to see what we're doing in stream, to be able to participate in stream tournaments, of which we've already hosted 2 and given 2 precursors away. And it's kind of a big group attempt for us to build up a guild hall. And whenever something cool happens, I'm actually able to take footage of it. And I'll be able to talk to you guys about the ever so expensive scribing and all those kinds of things as we go forward. But so the guild's doing very well. We have currently got our tavern going. For those who really know nothing about the way that the guilds work, basically, back in Lion's Arch, there is an organization of people who are set out to explore the world and capture territory off of Morgemoth. That's where the initial big raid instance is. Well, not raid. That's where the big initial instance is to capture your guild hall. And then these guys kind of move in, but there aren't many employees from that office back in Lion's Arch at first, the guild initiative. But you do have a guy, Anon, there, and he's like, look, they wanted us to set up a mess hall to relax and stuff while we perform work in this place. But how about we go crazy with it and build a big old tavern? So you're like, hell yeah, and you give him loads of materials, he builds the tavern, and once you've got the tavern, you know, a mine operator appears. You speak to the mine operator, and she's like, yeah, let's get Ethereum, and you spend that Ethereum from that point on building a bunch of the other structures. And that's where things start to branch. You can decide, do you want to build the mine up more, or do you want to continue working on the tavern, which at the moment is still like super placeholder and hasn't been built up or finished yet. And then no sooner as you finish like the first couple of mine upgrades, is designed in such a way that another new NPC will appear, and it's a Tengu who's talking about scribing. He's like, yeah, all right, what's up? Let's look at scribing. So now you've got a branch. Do you want to do the tavern? Do you want to do the mine? Or the scribing station? Once you've started the scribing, a bunch more NPCs appear, and that's where we've started now. And the NPCs that appear is like the war room. So if you're a World vs. World guild, you'd probably want to do that. The arena guy appears, and so does a marketplace guy. So it really, now that I'm actually in charge of it, now that I'm seeing, now that I'm playing, I'm having a lot of fun. You guys would be surprised how much dialogue is actually there. Some of the deeper and more fun conversations I'd expect from an expansion in this universe that just felt like they were missing from Heart of Thorns, I'm actually getting here. So, for example, the guy at the tavern is Anon, and the Tengu comes along, and the Non's like, hey, do you want a beer? Have you actually had beer? Do you know what that's like? Is this going to kill you? Should I give it to you? And the Tengu's like, yeah, whatever, we'll try it out. It's really cool the way that some of these extra lines of dialogue play into the experience of these races, and it's just stuff that I kind of felt like I was missing altogether. And that's kind of the one drawback from the guild systems. You know, when I built the scribing station, I was messing around with my scribing menus. I didn't even realize that there was all this cool dialogue going on in the background where 3 characters had ran along and were now talking to the tavern owner themselves too. And, you know, you kind of learn a little bit about that insane arena guy. There's no easy way to replay a lot of this dialogue that these NPCs have for you. So if you're not there in your guild hall when one of your random officers or leaders procs it, it's kind of like your SOL. Which is a shame. But then that's where we come in, and we get to do a cool video series out of it. So anyway, that's just a little bit of progress. The end game still for us, well, not the end game, but one of the main goals right now is definitely to build up this arena, to have some of these awesome Colosseum-style matches with, you know, any number of teams and these cool game types, which basically we've already talked about. And we have another 2 precursors to give away for that as well already. So it's just been pretty nice, and that's been the most of my PvE time. PvP, I've kind of stalled in Ruby, and I've got bored, and I hate losing games and feeling or almost knowing like it's not my fault. I hate the feeling that I'm just subject to the matchmaking. I will do, once the season is over, a dedicated video on on what it's like to be a solo queuer in the ranked environment, but right now I'm fairly sour to it. My original goal was to get Legend. I reined that into Diamond a while ago, and now I don't even know whether I can be bothered to go for Diamond, but we'll see. Maybe I'll end up going back to it. PvP is very fun when I'm winning at the very least. Alright, so let's have a look at some of these dev comments. Now, this is specifically to do with World vs. World. As a bit of an addendum to this as well, or as an additional fact, it's kind of interesting to me. The devs have been pretty good at responding on Reddit lately, and there was kind of an annoying thread on the official forums where people were saying, oh, damn it, ArenaNet, why do you respond on Reddit? Reddit wins again, I believe was the title of it. And the devs were kind of like having to defend themselves and stuff. If you guys don't like that there is some kind of weird, non-transparent environment sometimes where you feel like the devs aren't talking to you enough, I can promise you the worst way to go about rectifying that situation isn't to try and aggress or attack the devs just because now they are responding, but they're not daring to respond to you on the official forums, which is where you prefer having your discussion. It's kind of a silly idea. All you're going to do is make those devs who comment in their free time feel less likely that they want to leave messages, because it's going to brew vitriol over nothing. Even if they're contributing and being open, they still can't win. It was one of the most infuriating things I've seen recently. I can't believe you'd be so picky about just where the devs choose to respond, but whatever. What did appear on the official forums, at least, was a comment about World versus World. So I'm not going to quote it verbatim, but the idea is ArenaNet have assessed, or at least through this message, two things. Number one, they want to incentivize smaller group play. They want to make it more possible for small groups to beat large groups, which breaks up the zerginess, so that you don't just have 3 packets of players moving around in prime time, for example, is very good because these new maps are very large, have low player caps on them to avoid lag, feel super empty, and that's really one of the biggest problems that they have. Splitting up the big zergs should help to make these places feel a little bit more populated, but also empowering smaller groups of players to accomplish meaningful tasks is important on its own, because that means in the lower, servers where they struggle to map cap anyway, now people feel like, people like me who barely World versus World at all, I can feel like I can take just 4 mates in there and make stuff happen instead of needing these giant zergs. That's very important. So that's one thing. And then the other thing that they're looking to do actually is, they did kind of make the statement that they feel there's too much on the defensive side of the game right now. So that's going to be tweaked as well. So here's in order, I believe, or almost in order, the specific changes that are happening. And I'll be perfectly candid about where I don't understand fully the ramifications of the changes. So the first one is the auto upgrade system being disabled. Yeah, who the hell remembers? You all even remember me on the channel talking excitedly about the new World vs. World changes from before Heart of Thorns, and ArenaNet announced auto upgrades. The idea that getting supply to build up objectives and stuff like that was now being simplified, that it would just slowly roll up over time regardless of whatever else was happening. It's just that if you got dollies in or supply in, then it would boost it up, okay? But it was always gonna, build up, or the idea was just to defend it as much as you possibly could. And their reasons were several-fold, but I think the most important one for them was they knew they were making a lot of other stuff much more involved with the other kind of systems that have changed for World vs. World, when you claim as a guild, the way it interacts with your guild hall and so on. So they wanted to simplify that area, I suppose. In practice, the auto upgrade system just kind of made it feel really crappy and unnecessary and boring, ever trying to hamper supply lines and kill dollies and things. Not that there was even an insanely awesome play there before, but it was something you could do in World vs. World, and that just seems to have been destroyed. Well, they are reversing it. They've decided, auto upgrades, let's not, and that kind of denial play now is much more of a thing, and this also, at the same time, is incentivizing smaller group play. Also, this should make places a little less defensible if they're continuously being denied their supply from the outside, I guess. All right, but my opinion there may be a little bit wavery. Perhaps some serious World vs. Worlders in chat could do us all a favor and enlighten us. So moving on away from that as well, on the idea of being able to cap places quicker, the supply cost for setting up catapults has actually dropped by 10. And this is specifically, again, it's like the new mechanics made it kind of too difficult to get into some of these places, too easy to defend them. People were having too long, so they're reducing, by diminishing the price of the catapult supply cost, you can get more of them up rolling quicker. I do kind of find that interesting, though, that they did it just for catapults, but not rams as well. So does this just mean it's an even more brain-dead decision now to just go for catters? Because there are some positions where with those you can like get multiple walls and stuff right now, no? So I don't know whether they're ever going to look at the gates again or what, but that's not mentioned for this update. Now here, the last three big things are really big and really interesting. The first of which I don't understand 100% how much it will change the game, but points per kill is coming on forever. PPK actually was a component of one of like their weird world versus world experimentation things that they did before. The idea here is currently in world versus world, the only way to win your matchup, which really doesn't mean anything anyway, which is a whole separate problem, but the only way to really win it is to play points per tick, play the game of the caps. And I can understand ArenaNet wanting to incentivize that, but now you can also earn points for your server by scoring stomps on people. And I'm not sure whether the new points per kill system is purely only stomps or whether it is just through any kind of kill at all. Perhaps they clarified that somewhere. But PPK has always been much loved by people. It puts more incentive and focus on the actual fighting between players. And I think almost universally, World vs. Worlders will tell you that it's the fights that they're looking for. And now when massive fights happen and are concluded and stuff, you actually see it affects the scoreboard somewhat. The penultimate change, speaking of fights, affects them in a really big way. One of the biggest things about World versus World, when you take big Zergs clashing into each other, is rallying really doesn't play with it too comfortably. Say one team ends up actually scoring 5 downs, right? And you only have a single guy down. If they manage to score that kill on that single guy, every single person on your side that dies is rallying a huge number of the enemy Zerg. And so what could be a close fight or a fight that you deserve to win, just by circumstance of the fact 5 people could have tagged a single body when it gets defeated, one person can be playing out of position. One person, from that death causing so many rallies, can screw the entire matchup. And no, the weight on one person's significance isn't necessarily a good thing in this example. This has always crippled things, and I guess in ArenaNet's eyes, this is quite important as well when you've say got a small group versus a very big group, or so they say. But they're changing rally, right? Rally now, if you die, if you get defeated in a big fight, you are only going to rally one guy on the enemy team. One death for one rally. It's 1 for 1 now. And that stops so much of these huge swings, keeps the rally mechanic, keeps Guild Wars 2's kind of interesting downstate play, which, you know, is kind of one of the hallmarks of Guild Wars 2, I suppose, compared to other MMOs, bringing that Borderlands-style downstate in. And, you know, I'd never expect them to get rid of that completely or anything like that, or rallying completely. There's still a chance for rallies to happen. It's just they'll be much rarer, much less weight on those, and the actual fights themselves should change pretty nicely. And then once again, another big change with the downstate for the final thing that they expressed to us, and that's the process of resurrecting defeated people. So another kind of funny thing is, imagine you're in a protracted siege, all right? And you're sat on an AC and you're getting hazed down, right? And it's actually better in a lot of cases to get defeated. Because once you're defeated, someone can run over to you while in combat, res you up, and it doesn't matter that while they're resing you, your body's being hazed by the AC, because you're not in downstate anymore, you're defeated, and any progress you make on that res is permanent progress. You can just keep brute forcing it until eventually you get that person up, and there you go. Specifically as well, think about this, okay? Think about you being with just 9 of your friends, alright, let's say you beat the raid, and you're like, woo, we must be amazing world versus world now, you run in, I don't know, some reason like this, okay? You're in there with 10 of your friends. And your 10-man force is now going to go up against a 40-man force, let's say, all right? And obviously the odds are stacked against you, but let's imagine you play insanely well. Let's say you're not a raid group, actually. You're like the most experienced, best world versus world players ever, and you've got the perfect comp. You like these kinds of fights. You enjoy, as a small group, defeating much larger blobs that are maybe uncommanded. Now, before the stability change and some other changes too, this was not, maybe the numbers I've given were, but this idea was not too uncommon. And especially considering, you know, when Guild Wars 2 was earlier, there were more noobs around in general, right? The general understanding of the game for your average player was lower 3 years ago than it is today. But this stuff's exciting. One of the reasons it kind of sucks is because of defeating, and the discussion I just gave you guys a moment ago where people can just brute force. So even if in your insane group you manage to beat 20 of the enemies or whatever, right? All it takes is a couple of them to sit there in combat, pretty safe at the moment, and just, you know, brute force res up continually, even though being in combat reduces the res speed, and it doesn't matter, right? Like, they're gonna run over you just because of their sheer numbers. That is now impossible, because once this change goes through, when you are in combat, you cannot res defeated players. You can still res downstate players, so that's still absolutely a play rushing to bodies. In fact, it's more important now. But what it means is in these weird matchups when smaller man groups are against large man, like, there's much less brute forcing going on. If you score a kill, you've scored that kill for good, all right? As long as even the vaguest amount of haze is going on there. So this is actually really good, and I think both of these last two changes I've expressed, the rally and the combat res, those are going to mean big things, hopefully. And they're great first steps. You know, in a lot of ways, to me, they seem like very obvious steps to have taken, but Arena never really have before. But here they have, and I'm struggling to see anything super terrible that could come of them, but maybe you guys can elaborate on that for me. But that's pretty much it for the video here today, guys, the day before Christmas Eve. Speaking of Christmas Eve, remember, today's video and tomorrow's video, they are the last videos you have a chance to enter in these competitions we have been doing. So that is absolutely the deadline, tomorrow's video, just to let you guys aware. And something pretty cool that's going on as well. It's probably silly for me to mention it, but ArenaNet have been sending out Christmas cards, and I actually managed to get one, which is pretty cool. They tend to do this. I remembered getting one years ago, back when I played Guild Wars 1. I actually found it in my older brother's bin because it had been addressed to him because he'd originally made the account, and he had no idea what it was, and I had managed to find it in the bin just through pure luck. But I'd managed to get one of these cards a long time ago. This is really awesome. There's loads of different signatures on it, and I guess they send them out to a variety of players. I think this one specifically because I'm a part of the partner program, but still. Great stuff. Hope to see you guys tomorrow. I hope you learned a little something about what I had to talk about today, and always happy to keep you guys in the loop. Have a great evening, guys, and I will see you for something cool tomorrow.